Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new ProRevenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, I gave a large tip to the other waitress. I went to this place in Texas to have breakfast. When I first entered, I was treated very coldly and then seated. Obviously, they were upset that they had to seat me on a 4-chair table while I was alone. After being ignored by my waitress for 20 minutes, I waved at another waitress and placed my order. She was kind enough to attend. My main waitress then brought me orange juice and literally scolded me for asking someone else for my food, as they divide tables between them. Obviously, me being me, I don't operate on scolding and I value customer service due to what I do. So, after waiting another 20 minutes for my bagel, I waved at the first waitress who took my order and asked her for the status of my order. She said she will check. A minute later, I saw my waitress literally arguing with the other waitress, possibly about why she is attending to my table. Now my main waitress came back later with a cold bagel that she tossed on the table, so later on, I asked for the check and my main waitress brought it quickly cause I believe she could not wait to kick me out. The check came for something like $12, so I put a $100 bill and asked for change. Now when that happened, my main waitress started to become slightly friendly, so when she brought the change back, I waved to the attentive waitress and pulled the entire $100 change and handed it to that girl and said, I hope you don't share tips in this place because only you deserve this tip, you're wonderful unlike your friend over here, and I left. My main waitress was standing there in shock. The next one is titled, He took my best friend away so I told his wife about his affair. So a few years ago I worked at a Fortune 100 company. I was there on a contract. Everything was great. Really liked the team, boss, Paul, was great. He and I could talk about anything honestly as two guys. He's been to my house. I've been to his. His wife is funny and a stay-at-home mum. If it wasn't for the boss-contractor thing, we could be bros outside of work. At some point there is a new woman contractor, Mary, that starts on the team. She sits in the cube next to me. She's married, pretty hot, a little bit flirty, just generally great to talk to. She and I hit it off right away. We become pretty close. We become friends, texting each other at night about work and family and just general stuff. Every now and then she throws some random comments out there about me coming over to her place. Which, from a self-esteem point of view, was just a big plus in my book. Never took her up on it, but could have. We have our normal disagreements about how to run stuff, complete tasks, etc. And while those got heated, it was just two strong-willed people having different opinions. No big deal. She becomes a family friend. Our kids play together, families go to events together, etc. Fast forward to about 4 months later, I am chatting with my boss late at night, project cutover. He mentions that he is jealous how Mary and I can fight and clear the air and just move on. I thank him for the compliment and didn't think anything of it. Well, within a couple of weeks boss man and Mary are doing lunch together constantly. I ask him if I should move out of the way as it is obvious that he likes her. Remember, I am there on a contract, so my boss can fire me without a reason, that's why I treated him with deference. He says no. Life goes on for another couple of weeks this way. Then he puts her on his pet project. All of her time is now allocated to his stuff. He doesn't have time for the rest of the team as all of his attention is focused on his project. I am sure you can see where this is heading. It was quite obvious to the entire group that they were having an affair. The entire group was up in arms about this because this new girl is getting all of the boss's attention, getting perks, etc. The same old story that you have heard about before. Needless to say, I too am upset. I am losing Mary, my best friend forever. I figured we were friends enough to keep being friends even through her affair. Obviously not. What bugged me about the entire thing is that I told my boss, who was also a friend, that his affair with her was ruining my work relationship and my personal relationship with Mary. He denied to my face that they were having an affair, which was such crap, because I overheard him talking to her on the phone saying how he wanted to come over to her place for one of their status meetings and make out with her. Side note, there were also a couple of photos of them that were taken by people on the team. One was taken in the office at a group celebration for someone's birthday. In the background, you can see them in his office with his hands on her butt, and another one where the team was out to a concert where everyone was drinking. People finally noticed that they disappeared. One of the women in the group took a picture of them kissing in his car. Of course, I didn't tell them about these pictures during our talk. F him and her. Less than a month later, we do a shuffling of cube locations, to better align the people who work on projects together. I am moved to a deserted island, no one around me. Handwriting is on the wall. 1 month after that, I am CC'd on an email to my contracting firm informing them that my last day will be 2 weeks from that email. So through this whole thing, my friend just quit hanging out, and I get why, and stopped caring. Mary pretty much just dumped me as a friend. I didn't like it. I tried to ask her why to see if she would say anything at all. No dice. Her allegiance was to Paul now. I told her that I was upset. She told me she didn't care and didn't have time for me. If you want to have an affair, go for it. The whole affair part didn't bother me too much. I will admit to some envy there, but I am not going to sacrifice everything I have for some idiot. Just not worth it to me. What bothered me was the lack of respect that they both showed me. I was pretty honest with both of them about what the team was saying, how everyone was feeling, etc. What they did was take my honesty and use it so that they could cover up their affair better. For example, when I said people were noticing that she would leave and then Paul would get his coat on and leave within 5 minutes, he started leaving his coat in the office and leaving about 15 minutes after her. When I said that people noticed he was giving gifts to her and not to the group, then all of a sudden the group started getting stuff too. Stuff like that. What was funny, in a messed up way, is that about 4 months after I was gone, she started being friendly again. Random, "How are you, my day sucked" texts. Anyway, I moved on work-wise. Still texted her every few days after she started texting me. Again, nothing major. Just pleasantries. But that anger was still inside me because of how vulnerable I made myself to her and how I felt I was used. So I resolved to get even. I waited a full year, and heard that she had accepted a full-time position with my former boss. I then sent an anonymous email to his wife letting her know about the affair and giving her details and the proof, the pictures, too. Mary, of course, called me, so did my former boss. He was upset. I told both of them that I did not do anything. How could I? I have been gone for more than a year. I don't know anything about your life anymore. I heard that both of them got tossed out of their homes and are getting divorced. They deserve each other. Moral of the story: if you are going to have an affair, be discreet and keep your friends close. Or have the nerve to say, "I don't want to be friends anymore," and not be a passive-aggressive douchebag. Because if not, they may become your enemy and might be even more passive-aggressive and look for revenge. Did it make me feel better that I did it? Hell yes. The next one is titled, "I told everyone her products were free, she was wiped out in seconds." I am in the mall, and I am shopping for clothes, looking around for stuff, just relaxing. In one of the corners of the mall, there was this little open boutique that was selling apples covered in caramel. I walked past it and stopped for a second looking at the apples. I liked the way they were organized all in a perfect line and all that, and the lady standing behind the little boutique rudely asked me if I'm going to buy anything. I responded, "No, I don't really like caramel apples, but thank you for asking." The lady looks at me and scans me from head to toe. I was wearing some running shorts, t-shirt and running shoes that were kind of dirty since I ran and outside was raining. "You don't look like you can afford one anyway." Shocked by her answer and how impolite the lady can be, I inhaled deeply and shouted, "Free caramel apples." Now imagine about 30 to 40 people, about 20 of them were kids, run to the boutique, take one or more apples and leave, all in about 20 to 25 seconds, while the lady stood there with her mouth open just watching her stand get cleared. The next one is titled, "An Upgrade to Business Class." I am a frequent flyer, but at this time in my career, I wasn't getting frequent upgrades to business class. I prefer the aisle seats and was settling in for a long flight across the country when a very annoyed woman informed me that I was sitting in her aisle seat. I was embarrassed after taking a look at my boarding pass and seeing that I actually had been assigned a middle seat. Middle seats are the worst seats on the plane. You play elbow jockey with not one but two people in your row, and you still have to ask permission from the person in the aisle to use the restroom. It's a crummy way to take a long flight. I apologized and took my proper seat. As she sat down, she said something to me like, "I bet you wish you were in the aisle seat." I replied sheepishly that I probably did. She went on to say that she was a frequent flyer and only sits in aisle seats. I mumbled something in semi-polite response, but it was clear she was gloating. All of a sudden, in what seemed like perfect timing that only happens in a movie, a gate agent magically appeared in our row looking for me. She asked me if I would be interested in an upgrade to business class. With a look of unbridled joy on my face, I responded, "Why, yes, thank you. I would love an upgrade to business class." I gathered my gear, pulled my carry-on luggage from the bin, and headed up to the front of the plane, but made sure to look back and wink at the woman in the aisle seat. The next one is titled, "He didn't break up with her, he made her mum do it." A friend of mine found out his girlfriend of 2 years was cheating on him. He was literally crying in his car for a few days. He was planning on marriage and kids and the white picket fence with her. He didn't tell her he knew. He told her that he was going to his parents' house for a few days to help them with some repairs. Instead, he hung out with us and cried, literally cried in front of his buddies, for a couple of days, so we helped him get out of it. He sobered up and told us how he was going to destroy her, and I didn't even understand it at the time. But he was headed to a famous law school and was thinking way ahead of us. He drove to his girlfriend's mother's house, over an hour outside of town, with her items from his apartment nicely boxed up, and said he wanted to leave them with her for GF. GF's mum and he had met several times, he had gone to their Thanksgiving, etc. GF's mum was like, "Okay, but why?" Not suspecting anything was wrong. And he said something brief like, "I don't think we'll be seeing each other again, but I needed to get this box back to her. But thank you for everything you've done for me. I'm sorry it didn't work out." GF's mum is stunned and tries to ask why and what and everything, but my friend just starts crying, I don't think intentionally, and runs off and drives away. He never broke up with the GF, never even contacted her. She heard about it from her mum, who called her immediately, and he received confused and angry texts from the now ex on his drive home. A little while later, at least a couple of weeks, he gets an email from the GF's mum. I don't remember the specifics, but it was not, "I apologize for my daughter," but more like, "I hope you find a woman who loves you unconditionally," or something to that effect. He responded with something like, "Thanks, your note means a lot to me." Nothing negative. Dude is now an up-and-coming lawyer, and still gets texts from the ex saying that she constantly hears from her mum how she ruined it with the one good guy she had and how she doesn't deserve to be happy. The friend has never responded to one text and blocked her from FB. Of course, this was all 100% planned. My friend wanted the hurt to come from someone who would stay in his ex's life, not from someone who would be quickly forgotten. He deliberately created a rift in the closest relationship that two women can have. And all in a friendly 60-second conversation with no harsh words or accusations. The next one is titled, "He lied about being married, so I slept with his relative." My revenge was supposed to stay secret until I was ready to reveal it, but some people are just inconsiderate. So my ex-fiancé and I had gotten in contact with each other after 13 years. He lived in another state, so he paid for me to come visit. Before that, I asked him if he ever got married. He said no, but he did have something like a fiancée at that time. He said she would be out of town when I came to see him. Well, I get to his state and he took me to his house because he had to get something, and I went inside but not too far. As he was wandering around his house, I was looking at the different pictures of his family that were sitting on the fireplace mantle. I came across a marriage license between him and his something like a fiancée. I was shocked, hurt and very angry. I did let him know before I left that I knew he lied about being married. Fast forward 7 years, one of his relatives messaged me on Facebook. At this point, revenge was not on my mind until this person started saying how he had a crush on me all those years ago and he still thought I was beautiful. I am fairly smart and knew it was a line of bull to see how far he could get with me. That's when the revenge idea came about. We hooked up twice. So that my ex and his family had a death in the family. When my ex came to the funeral, his relative decided that that was the right time to tell him what we did. I was my ex's first love and his whole family knew exactly how he felt about me. Needless to say, he felt every bit of hurt I felt and then some. That definitely was not the moment I wanted him to find out. We still talk and see each other whenever we are in each other's state like nothing ever happened. I can still tell it eats him up though. He has no right to say anything because he is still married. The last one is titled, "He treated me like a nobody, so I boasted to him when I later saw him." Success is the best revenge. A school administrator predicted that I wouldn't be working there long after he observed me teaching with other trainees. He had conducted part of the training and talked at us rather than involving us, so those of us who had never taught were weak. 7 years later, I became a teacher supervisor and was to conduct part of the training with that administrator. He did all he could to block me out during the sessions. A year later, I was given the task of overhauling the teacher training, which I successfully did, making all of it more interactive and real. The administrator was still involved but with a much smaller role. He again tried to undermine. During this time, I married a low-ranking policeman. I heard that the administrator had been derogatory about the marriage and my husband's profession, again predicting failure. When I chose to leave because he and his clique blocked a well-earned pay raise, he gloated and said that I would never find a better position. I did, though, working a third of my previous hours for more pay. But that wasn't the end. We ran into him at an exhibition around 10 years later. He smugly stated he had gone on to work at a much larger, better-paying organization. His mouth hung open when he heard of my own work, our paid-for home, my husband's promotions and our trucking company with 6 trucks that we own free and clear. Revenge is having a good and happy life in spite of others' interference and predictions. Thanks for listening.